Welcome back to the Sports Den Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hooker, with these guys, I want to say. But we're going to come back to the most anticipated segment of the whole year, I think, in my eyes. And in the year 2022, I think it's the most anticipated segment of all the implication that goes on. So, Georgia versus Tennessee. Justin, you have the honor of going first. So go. Explain.
I'm going to start here. Georgia will lose. It will be close.
So? The game is crazy.
Georgia will lose. It will be close.
Gabe, go on mute.
And the reason why, to quote the great Kirk Herbstreit, Hendon Hooker. That's exactly what he said. When they sat up there on that desk, I know, Gabe, you know what I'm talking about in that video. They asked him, he said Hendon Hooker. Stetson Bennett is not keeping up with Hendon Hooker. That's going to be the number one reason why Georgia loses. Okay. Yes, Tennessee's defense is terrible. But they did go out there and they showed me that they're still competent. What they did against Kentucky and Will Levis. Will Levis has fallen off a cliff. I'll give you that. But at the same time, I'm not going to take away what Tennessee was able to make Will Levis do. 16 for 27, 3 picks, and not even 100 yards. Like, you can't just say that was all Levis. Like, the defense was out there playing well. And their DBs weren't playing bad, which is the part of the team that everyone seems to talk about. I don't think their defense is as bad as what people says. I think that they will be able to pass rush. Missouri gave a recipe of what you need to do against Georgia. I came on this podcast, and I told you exactly what that recipe was. You pass rush Stetson Bennett. We even saw it in the third quarter of the Florida State game. You get in Stetson Bennett's face, he will do something stupid. He panics. He gets out the pocket, and he starts doing crazy stuff, and he'll throw a dumb pass sometimes. And that's all you really need, especially when you're a team like Tennessee who can score every drive if you really want to. So I don't – so like if there's things like that going on, they're pass rushing Stetson Bennett. Yes, those DBs are terrible, and goes into another thing. They don't have to cover a lot of guys. They got to cover the tight ends, the 2 tight ends, and then Ladd McConkey. Like, I don't think it's impossible to cover Ladd McConkey. The 2 tight ends will be really hard. I don't think they have a single guy that can match up with Darnell Washington. That's going to be their toughest matchup to me. I think they do have a few fast guys over there that could maybe keep Brock Bowers in check. I'm not saying shut him down, but hold him to a modest number enough to not have it like so that he's the guy who breaks the game. And then, like Gabe said earlier, Tennessee's rush defense isn't bad either. I don't think their rush defense is not terrible. They did give up a lot of yards against Alabama and Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think that they've played another running back like that, and they're not going to play another running back like that against Georgia, in my opinion, either. Dejuan Edwards is great, but he is not like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but I'm going to give Georgia their credit, too. Stetson can do probably enough. We've seen Stetson can put up 40 and 50 points. We've seen that. A lot of that is relying on his receivers to make plays. I don't think that Stetson makes a ton of plays by himself. I really don't see that from what Georgia fans can tell. And like I said, those two like that, the recipe, pass rush Georgia, which forces those tight ends to stay in and block more. It kind of exposes the O-line for Georgia because it's not as great as it was in years previous. So you force them to keep some tight ends in. They no longer have receivers out there. I don't want to hear about Dominique Blaylock. Do not say it to me. I don't care. Like, that's cool. But or Kearis Jackson, like, bro. But that's okay. They're in my opinion, they're about as good as Trayshawn Holden, and we've talked about Trayshawn Holden. So I would venture to say that, and that's not crazy to say. Go check the stats. But I'll say that, and that's really all I have to say. Honestly, I think it's just going to come down to the fact that if it turns into a shootout, if it turns into where one of the teams has to score 40, Tennessee can do it more efficiently, and they're going to do it. And they might struggle with Georgia's defense at first, but the adjustments that Heupel and Josh and Alex Golesh make, and then you have a guy like Hyatt, and they just got Cedric Tillman back too. I think they're looking really like charged up. And you see how they played Kentucky. they're hyping themselves up to play a team like Georgia. I don't think they would have went out there and done Kentucky like that if Georgia wasn't on the schedule for the next week. So I think they're really hyped for this game, regardless of it being in Athens.
All right. Well, now that you've said your piece, I'll go. So I just want to say, we're talking all about Stetson. The thing comes down to, we know who Hendon Hooker is. He's a great quarterback, right? And everyone keeps doubting Stetson. And I don't get it, right? Because you tell me he's lucked his way into being top 10 in QBR the past 2 years in college football. He was number 3 in QBR last year. He's number 10 on the dot this year. So I don't think you can luck your way into doing that 2 years in a row, right? I don't think that's possible at all. Then the game in which Georgia has struggled on offense the most, that wasn't because, sure, you could say they struggled versus Kent State. That was a drop fumble or drop punt and a fumble that wrecked 2 of their drives, a bad interception that was just being overconfident. It's not a play that is going to be made versus a Power 5 team. But you say Missouri has shown the blueprint. And while you're not wrong, one thing you need to look at, you go look at the defense rankings for this year, right? Missouri is exactly at 19. Tennessee, and I want to get it exactly right, Tennessee is ranked after this whole Kentucky game in which their defense played great. They're 22. So Georgia struggled against the 19th best defense in the nation, total defense-wise, right? They're playing the number 82. So I don't think that the number 82 defense, and Tennessee was in the hundreds before this Kentucky game, I don't think that defense is going to be able to replicate what Missouri did, in all honesty. And then another thing, Tennessee does not have the players to make us, if it comes down to it, you said you trust Tennessee's offense more, but on the flip side of that, whose defense do you trust more to make a stop, right? Georgia has yet another year when they have a finals for the Benerick Award. I don't know how to say it. The top linebacker nation. This is another year where they've got a final. He's a semifinalist, but they've got another year where there's a guy in the running with a chance to win that race. Chris Smith is in the race for the best safety. He just got announced for a semifinalist. And so they have way more players on the defensive side of the ball. And then you come to look at it, you look at the stats for this season, right? Yards per game for offense, total offense, Tennessee's number 1, Georgia's number 2. Georgia averages 23 less yards. Yards per play, Tennessee's number 3, Georgia's number 4. Well, now you go look at total defense, Tennessee's 82 and Georgia's 4. Georgia gives up 262 yards per game, and Tennessee gives up 393. So it's just the offensive scoring offense. Tennessee's 1, offense is great. Georgia's number 6. Scoring defense, Tennessee's number 26, Georgia's number 2. And so Tennessee's defense, no, they're not bad, but one of those is not like the other. Georgia is not on the same level as Tennessee offensively. I'll give them that. But Georgia is up there comparable to Tennessee more on offense than Tennessee's comparable to Georgia on defense. And that's the key to the game. Add in the fact that they're at home. I hope the thing I want as a Georgia fan, number one, the thing I want the most Saturday, I want Tennessee to get the ball first. I want Hendon Hooker to come out after a touchback. I want Hendon Hooker on the 25, walking out, strapping on his chin straps, right? That is what I want more than anything because I know tackle, guard, one of them is going to jump on that first play. And in all honesty, I know Georgia's wide receivers are not all that great. I think it remains to be seen if they get A.D. Mitchell back and how effective is he, because that is big difference. But he hasn't played yet, so there is limitations. Even if he does play, he hasn't played in really 5 games. I mean, he came in, I think, against Auburn. I think he got some game time, but then he had a setback. So they're getting Arian Smith back, who is a burner. I mean, he's Georgia's off-brand of Jalen Hyatt, right? But he's getting back healthy. So I think Georgia's getting some wide receivers back healthy at the right time. And we saw what James Cook, and nobody on Georgia's team is like James Cook, but we saw what James Cook did to Tennessee last year in terms of catching the ball. I mean, if I had to guess, he probably had over 100 yards receiving. We've seen Kenny McIntosh do that once already this year. So I think he'll come out and do the same thing against Tennessee. He's going to be a mismatch for him. And nobody on that team can – I don't think anybody on really any team besides a select few people can guard either Brock or Darnell. I just think those are two of the top 5 tight ends in college football. And I think Georgia's wide receiver core, I don't want to say underrated, but it just depends. Ladd McConkey is a good SEC wide receiver, but he's in his own head. So how much does that affect him? Is my opinion. He's not great. He's not like a elite. He's not elite. I'm not gonna say
mid.
that.
He's mid.
Nah, he's not mid. I think he's above average. He's not in that elite category. If like great is right here and mid is right here, I think he's right here.
He's above average.
Okay.
The fact that you said great SEC wide receiver tells me what I need to know. But I will say, this. I understand your take. But once again, you're just looking at numbers. You're just looking at a bunch of stats. And it's funny because every Georgia fan has done the same thing that I've argued with so far. Everyone wants to mention what they were ranked, what Tennessee's defense is ranked, all this other stuff. They're 100, they're 80, they're blah, 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 whatever. None of that stuff mattered. You know what Alabama's defense was ranked going into that Tennessee game? We were top 10. It was number 6. It didn't mean anything.
Alabama put slow safeties on Jalen Hyatt. Alabama had 5 broken coverages. Here's my thing. Think about if you say since the year 2000 and you were to make a list of the top 10 defensive coordinators or people that have been defensive coordinators in college football since 2000, you know what two names? You know what 2 names would 100% be on there? Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp. And you know what both those people are? The head coach and the defensive coordinator for Georgia. And then you have a rising star in Glenn Schumann who has coached Nakobe Dean, Roquan Smith, Channing Tindall, Quay Walker, Tay Crowder, people who are starting in the NFL making an impact, and people who have won awards. That's Georgia's lineup of defensive coaches. To think that they didn't see what Saban and Pete Golding, who are great defensive coaches in their own right. I don't know that was a bad game plan by Alabama, but those are 2 great defensive coaches. That's 2 great defensive coaches. So they've seen what was wrong. In the same way that Tennessee might have seen what Missouri did, and Georgia saw what Alabama did, so they know what not to do. And
I agree with that.
I think Georgia has better athletes in the secondary than Alabama this year. At least that played in the Tennessee game.
I agree with that, too. I agree with both the statements that you just said. I don't think Georgia's stupid enough to put a slow safety. Any Alabama fan could have told you that DeMarco Hellams is slow. He's not catching up with anybody. Jordan Battle is our free safety. Why our strong safety was covering their fastest guy, I could never get through my head. It was that bunch set that they were running that was really confusing. They kept doing that bunch set with the crosser routes. Hyatt was open every time because Terrion Arnold was already getting burnt. And then they decided, we're just going to go to Hellams now. But I give you that. I don't think that Georgia's going to give up the big, huge plays like that. I think they're going to give up some runs. I think the running game for Tennessee is going to be, I would say, at least 130 yards, 140 yards is what they can get. I wouldn't be surprised, but
whoa, crazy.
Okay,
crazy.
I gotta cut in.
Whoa. I have to say something. I'm not gonna lie. One thing about Georgia, hey, from audience we have from Mark Richt to now, I swear to you, our past defense might have been trash. One thing about it, they're gonna stop the run. They're going to stop the run.
But that's the thing. I don't think it's going to be the running back. I think it's going to be Hooker.
It's going to be Hooker.
I think he's going to learn how to get outside of that pocket.
Here's my thing.
They're going to start running that read option. I think they're going to do the RPOs, and they're going to try to catch Georgia off guard running their quarterback. Because Hendon Hooker can run. Does he do it often? Not as much as you would like to see him, maybe. But I think they're going to come out and try to do something different and do that against Georgia and let that quarterback run a little bit. And
who
I
did
will
Georgia
say this.
just play? Who did Georgia play? Georgia's played one of the better rushing attacks. I don't want to say in the country, but definitely in the SEC.
That's a team that they're prepared for. They practiced all week, getting ready. Even in the bye week for a rushing quarterback.
You seriously think that whole bye week was spent on Florida? I don't buy that.
I don't believe that. But I do think.
And yes, they had 2 weeks. Yes, they had 2 weeks to game plan.
They prepared for a rushing quarterback in Anthony Richardson. For Hendon Hooker, you can prepare for a pass. You have to prepare for a passing quarterback. and then you have to have guys who are ready for if Hendon Hooker runs. I think Tennessee's going to take advantage of that, and they're going to make sure Hendon Hooker runs. And then
I think the
and then
problem.
when they
I
do,
think
and then when they do that, I will say this: they're Georgia's DBs. I give Chris Smith his props because Chris Smith has looked good all year. I will say that I've seen Lassiter and Ringo get beat before. Like we've seen that happen. Like so, I don't think it's impossible that that those receivers can break a big play like how they did against Helms. I don't say it's going to happen 4 or 5 times, and I don't think it's going to be 70, 80-yard balls because Pete Golding doesn't know how to make a defensive adjustment for his life. I'll tell you that right now. Neither of those Alabama coordinators do. But I will say that I don't think it's crazy to say that Tennessee does get a few big plays.
And no, it's not. But the thing is, where the difference of the game comes down to, what Tennessee hasn't had to do all year, and this is because they're good. It's not luck, right? It's not discrediting Tennessee at all. Tennessee has not had to do very many drives down the field. They've been able to hit that. I mean, they've been able to hit that deep ball. I mean, their tempo rankings are incredible.
Yeah,
they're
on that hurry up real quick.
Yeah, I mean they hurry up, right? And so one reason that works to their advantage is because they're able to hit that 70, 80-yard bomb. The difference between the reason you want big plays, it's easier to execute once and hit an 80-yard touchdown than it is to execute 10 times and drive for 80 yards. So when Georgia's defense is not anything like last year's, but Georgia has a very bend, don't break defense. So what happens, and I'm not saying Tennessee can't do this per se, but what happens when Georgia makes Tennessee continuously have 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives if they want to score a touchdown? Does Tennessee execute all 10 of those times every time without getting those big chunk plays? I don't know. And Tennessee is not going to be able to run on Georgia. Georgia's defensive line looked amazing versus Florida. I'll even say that. Having Jalen Carter, the reason Nolan Smith being out worries me is because what would make Georgia so good on the defensive line this game is that they would be able to rush 5, right? Jalen Carter has played, if I remember, this is a stat I saw, so this might not be exactly right. Jalen Carter has had like 58 pass rush snaps this year. He has 11 quarterback pressures. That's an outstanding win rate if we're talking, especially an interior defensive lineman. So when that pocket collapses, one thing Nolan Smith was so good at was containing the quarterback. Is Georgia going to be able to contain? That's one thing Georgia's always been able to do. So I think it comes down to you got 78 Nazir Stackhouse and you got 88 Jalen Carter. They're going to plug up the middle on that run. Tennessee's only chance is going to be runs to the outside. And then you've got Chris Smith, Malachi Starks, and Keely Ringo is one of the better run defense corners in college football. I'll agree with you, he's gotten burned.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you, he's gotten burnt. But Tennessee's not going to be able to go up the middle in those two. And then when they run to the outside, Georgia's outside run defense is better than anyone's in the country in terms of corners and all that. But I also think Tennessee secondary is not good. We know that. Tennessee fans know that. Everyone will admit that. Their defensive line is good. With the way Georgia's run defense has looked run offense has looked these past 3 games, it's looked really good. So when Georgia gets that push and they've got Kenny McIntosh, Branson Robinson, Dejon Edwards going 5, 6, 7 yards per carry, which I think they will do, not with crazy consistency, but I think they'll average around 5 yards per carry. What happens when they go and Stetson pulls it back for the play action? Because that's what Georgia's always been so good on these past 2, since they've had Tom Monken as offensive coordinator, they have killed teams with play action. So when those linebackers and those safeties are so worried about, we've been ran on 3 times this drive for 17 yards. But when Stetson pulls that back and you have Brock Bowers coming across the middle, it's going to be a dangerous game for Tennessee.
I do not see Georgia averaging 5 yards a carry.
Okay.
Now it could get lower as the game goes on, but I don't think it's as much what the average is at the end of the game. I think it's how much push they are getting. How much do the linebackers have to help? If the linebackers have to help and they're holding Georgia to 4 yards per carry, I still think it'll be 3.5. I think it'll still be the same result as long as they can get the defensive line to not make the plays on the run game, which their interior line has looked much improved since the Missouri. I mean, since that last quarter of the Missouri game on, Georgia's offensive line in general, the tackles were already good this year. Tackles have been playing fine. But the interior offensive line has looked great since the last quarter of that Missouri game. So when the linebackers and the safeties are the ones having to make those tackles, that's when it's going to get dangerous for Tennessee.
Okay. Y'all had to say what y'all had to say for that game?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
My turn. Okay. Kirby's two main things about Georgia's football team that will win them championships and games: composure and physicality. Whichever team is the most composed and the most settled for this game will win. The more physical team, I think it's Georgia, but Tennessee has shown that they will lay the boom. But those two things are going to be the most important things to this game. I'm not big on stats or whatever. I just watch the game. Justin, your freezing cold take of the year was Hendon Hooker in the beginning of the season. I would never let you live that up.
I'll give you that.
But Hendon Hooker has like a Heisman candidate. One thing I can say is, if I'm in a shootout and I'm choosing between Hendon Hooker and Stetson Bennett this year, I'm choosing Hendon Hooker. All I'm saying is this: Stetson doesn't have to be the guy that wins us this game. That's the thing that needs to go in Georgia fans' mind. Stetson doesn't have to be the superstar that we want him to be or that we see him as. We just need him to complete passes. Just complete passes and maybe use your legs a couple times. That's all we need you to do. That's not crazy to do, Stetson. Just complete passes and be an Alex Smith.
I think
if he be the Alex Smith, can we win this game? Yes.
You're hilarious.
I think one thing, Stetson did not run much at all in that Florida game. I don't even know if he had a carry, right? And I think that's because he was not trying to get hit. I think he's going to pull it out a lot more in this Tennessee game because Stetson is the same as Hendon Hooker, where sure they don't look like they're going to run. They're not an Anthony Richardson, right? But when you start seeing, that running back keeps getting 5 yards on us, and that end comes onto that running back, and he pulls it. I mean, we've seen Stetson go for 60 yards this season. I mean, we saw it, 2 games ago versus Auburn? Or was that versus Vandy? I don't exactly remember.
Auburn.
I thought it was Auburn. But so it's going to, at the end of the day, both these quarterbacks have the same sort of skill set. Hendon Hooker just does it better. So I think it's going to be now. Okay, they're not the same talent, but they have the same styles of play, in my opinion.
No.
Okay, hold up.
I'm not trying to get you close.
Not with the deep passes. But I'm saying in the pocket with their legs. And
No.
yes, I think they're the same. I think they're the same with their legs.
Hendon in the pocket against Bama was perfect.
But my thing is,
Stetson cannot replicate that performance that Hendon Hooker had against Bama. He can't.
With his legs?
In the pocket, you said they're the same skill wise in the pocket and with their legs.
Stetson's
not with the deep passes. Stetson's not going to step up and hit Jalen Hyatt for 80 yards. But in terms of when the pocket collapses and they get out of there, they're both going to run for 10 yards, is what I'm saying. So I think it's going to be. I think they're both going to have a similar game plan. Is that the quarterbacks are going to run more than they have.
The difference is that when the pocket collapses, Hooker, in my opinion, what Jonathan said, has more composure than what Stetson does. That's when Stetson starts throwing picks, when they're on his head and they're all around him, and he starts getting all jittery and stuff. And you can always tell when Stetson is shook. Big eye Stetson. So I'll say this. To me, you said Stetson doesn't have to win you this game. He doesn't have to win you this game, but he can't make any mistakes. He can absolutely lose Georgia this game. I would not.
Okay, I can agree to that.
Yeah.
I think it was more if you go look at Stetson's interceptions this year, it's not been big eyed Stetson, it's been big head Stetson. He started thinking, I can fit this ball in that. It's not been he's gotten pressured and he's jittered around and he's throwing an interception like he did versus Bama last year. He didn't do it too much against other teams, but mainly versus Bama last year, specifically in that SEC championship. When they got him rattled, that's when he started throwing picks. This year, it's been the Kent State game, his first interception of the year. He had Marcus Rosemary-Jackson coming over the middle. He thought he was going to put a perfect ball. It was a great play by the defender, but that ball had to be perfect. The defender was on his hip pocket. So his head got too big after the first couple of games, and that's why he made that pass. Against Florida, half the interceptions he had or could have had was him not taking the smart read. So that goes back, yes, he can't lose it, but I also think he's not going to have to win it, but I think
he gets
he
in his
does
head.
at the same time. It's not going to be
He does have to win this game for y'all at the end of the day.
I agree with that, but I don't think
that
it's
Tennessee,
in the same sense. I don't think it's the same sense that in the way Hendon Hooker has to win this game for Tennessee, it's not the same as that. I think Stetson's been, and here's the thing. You go look at Stetson. I know y'all don't want to talk about stats, but you go look at Stetson's stats. He doesn't have a lot of touchdown passes against Florida specific, but
he's a lot of touchdown runs.
He does have good touchdown runs, but the big passing plays for Georgia have all gotten dragged down within the 10. Georgia leads the nation in rushing touchdowns, and so whenever they lead the nation in rushing touchdowns. You go look up.
Because your quarterback doesn't throw no touchdowns.
But but here's the thing, you go watch the replay of that Florida game. Brock Bowers down the sideline got dragged down at 4. Georgia had 3 plays where they scored on the play after a long passing yard. Kenny McIntosh had 2 touchdowns and DeJohn Edwards had 1 off a long passing play that got dragged down inside the 5. Georgia had 1 from the 2, the 3, and the 4 that were run-ins right after a big play. They had that one Darnell Washington got tackled at the end. They had one where Brock Bowers got tackled at the end. I can't remember who was the other one who got tackled at the end. But Georgia hasn't had those passing plays that gone long for a touchdown. They've had the passing plays that have gone long, and then they ran it in.
Okay. But here's the thing. The thing that will win Georgia the game is running the football. If you wear down Tennessee's defense, you guys can win. And take time off the clock, because we know how Tennessee can score in a hurry. Literally, Georgia is his best. Because remember when Kenny scored that touchdown against Brendan Cox and the game was completely over? Like, we was like, yeah, that's it. You saw how tired Georgia's defense was? Because we ran the ball so consistently with Edwards, Robinson, and McIntosh. Literally. That's the best version of Georgia. When they hand the ball off, give it to the Rock. Georgia's known for what? Run the ball. We are called RBU. For what reason? Because we run the ball. Justin, stop with that.
I think it's also, I don't think what wins the game for Georgia is their running. Just like I don't necessarily think what wins the game for Tennessee is its passing, because those are 2 things that I think all 3 of us know are going to happen. Georgia's going to run the ball, and Tennessee's going to throw the ball. Those are just 2 givens. Now, if Tennessee throws for 400, Georgia's going to be in real trouble. If Tennessee throws 500. If Georgia runs for 250, Tennessee's in real trouble. So obviously limiting those is going to be what is essential to these game plans. But for Georgia, my question is, how are they going to pass the ball? Because if they can't throw the ball, Tennessee is going to put 7 in the box and shut down the run. I mean, it's just going to happen.
And then he's saying exactly what I was about to go into, and I'll go into.
And then for Tennessee, the question is, how can they run the ball? Because if Georgia can just rush 4 or 5 and get pressure and stop the run, and they can just sit everyone else back, that's going to be real trouble for Tennessee. So I think the offensive game plans, we know Georgia's going to run, and we know Tennessee's going to throw. But how well can they do the other aspects of offense?
See, and that's cool.
And that's why I think play action is going to be so important for Georgia.
This is why I said Stetson is going to have to win this game. Tennessee knows that Georgia's going to want to run the ball. They're going to start off. Georgia's going to start off trying to run the ball, push their own agenda, and if they can win that way, they're going to do it. But if Tennessee comes out there, proves that they can stop that run for a few drives, I promise you that offense is going to switch up so quick. they're going to start putting it in Stetson's hands and trying to throw it down the field. And when you force Stetson to do that, as long as you pass rush him, like we said, you see where, like what you were talking about, his pick against Florida, the ones that should have been picks, when he gets out of that pocket and he starts try to do things.
But those were in the pocket.
Even then, like when he's getting pressured, when people are flying around in his face and he's gotten hit a few times,
a lot of those he
starts
pressured.
making dumb reads. He starts making dumb reads. And that's even worse.
I think what it is, I think Stetson, I think he's changed a lot. I think he has that ability to get pressured and still make a good throw. He was pressured on that touchdown throw to A.D. Mitchell in the national championship. He stepped up in the pocket and he put it up. Now, I know it was a free play, right? So that completely changes thought process. But he was pressured. He stepped up and he still made the big time, good, great even throw. And so I don't think now, obviously, if they're hands in his face all the time, Stetson's not a tall guy, it's going to bother him, right? It's just a given. Same way it would bother Kyler Murray. Same way it would bother Bryce Young. I mean, they're not tall. I mean, and now Stetson's not
Bryce Young had to move a lot in that game.
And he did.
That Tennessee pass rush is going to get there.
And that's why Hook flamed me when I said, because of that game, I said Bryce Young's underrated. And he hated that take. But
hated it. Bro, Bryce Young
he's underrated. Yeah, he is.
He's going to get his
I think he's underrated.
He's our whole entire team. Me and my dad talked about this the other day. When you think about Alabama quarterbacks, if you were to rank them, it's very hard. Yeah, it's hard not to put him over Tua and Mac, honestly.
My thing is, Alabama, I hate to get too off target, but Alabama probably loses that game by 14 or more if they don't have Bryce Young at quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
So if they had Jalen Milroe at quarterback, I promise they would lost by 20 plus.
I came on my podcast and I said that because after Bryce Young got hurt in the Arkansas game, I did a panic or piece on it. And I said, if Bryce Young isn't playing in the Texas A&M game, it's peace. If he doesn't play in that Tennessee game, we're getting beat. And then I went on further to say, even if he plays, I think we still get beat because I can see what Tennessee is. So I'll say this. And like you said, if they can stop Tennessee's run, and that's okay. I don't think they care if they run. As long as they get some chunk run plays with Hendon Hooker or stuff like that, or maybe some of those extended run plays or throwing screens and like those extended runs where it's really just a pass, like a long handoffs, whatever you want to call them, those plays behind the line, I think they'll be completely fine. I really do. And they have guys that can make plays. And yes, Georgia has a good defense with guys that will fly to a ball for sure. They are fast. But I don't know if it's going to be happening as consistently for them. Because to me, the biggest difference is that, like, yes, what you said, I think Georgia's offense is closer to Tennessee's offense than Tennessee's defense is to Georgia's offense. But Tennessee's offense is so good. I've seen the holes in Georgia. Unless Georgia had that defense from last year, I just don't see where Georgia doesn't give up enough to where the game is going to be on Stetson, which is why I said Stetson is going to have to beat Georgia. They're going to force Stetson to be the guy. I think that's still the formula. Like, you pass rush, you force Stetson to throw that ball, you take away some of those tight ends because they got a block now. Like, I think that's still the recipe to beat Georgia. You put that pressure on Stetson. And I don't think that Georgia's defense is going to be stopping Tennessee enough for it to not be at least 30 points on that board, man.
Hear me out.
All right.
Hear me out. Tennessee, offense, prolific. Cool. Great. Defense, it's okay. But the way I see it, Georgia's going to win based off being balanced on both ends.
What do you think Tennessee's going to score?
30 plus. I'm not even going to lie.
If it's like that, y'all are losing.
No. We are not losing. We are not losing.
If it hits 30, y'all are losing. If it hits 30,
hear me out. Hear me out. If A.D. Mitchell plays, we're going to be A-okay. But if he doesn't, I'm a little worrisome because Brock can only do so much. Darnell can only do so much.
You've seen them both get shut down.
But I'll say this. Think about it. Our running backs are not as heavily used as years before. So that's why I said if we start grounding and pounding and start rushing, I'm okay with that because I feel like Tennessee's defense has not gone through such a wear and tear, unless you count the Bama game. But Jahmyr Gibbs was going off, so that's why I say I'm not too like scared of Tennessee's defense. The offense, sure, but when you look at it, Georgia's defense is going to be able to get, I'll say, a pick, because didn't Alabama get a pick off Hendon Hooker?
I think we had a fumble recovery.
Yeah, y'all made him turn the ball over. Y'all made him turn the ball over, and I feel like Georgia's defense they thought off turnovers, because Starks has like three picks right now. Christmas has 3. Ringo has 1. Laster has 1. And then plus the rush from the front seven is phenomenal. It's just that we don't have the guys' names as last year's. When we thought with Georgia, we thought of Kobe Thing, Jordan Davis, all these guys. But we don't have such big names. But we have guys who can produce in bunches as we do right now. Because Jalen Carter is a better athlete than Jordan Davis when it comes to rushing the passer and stuff like that. Like he won't be able to stop the run or clog up the middle as Jordan did, but he can do something plus more in the pass game like Jordan. But that's why I said Georgia's going to be okay in this game. It just all depends on which Georgia team do we have coming out. Do we have a flat Georgia team that we saw against Kent State, against Missouri, or we'll have the hyped up team when it was against South Carolina, Florida, all these teams. And one thing I want to see is Kirby Smart jumping and stuff. When Kirby Smart's jumping, yelling, getting players' faces, that's when Georgia plays the best. Literally. That's all. That's it.
I miss that for Saban too.
One thing, and don't chime in before I finish this. So when Georgia allows 30 points under Kirby Smart, they're 1-9, right? So going back to that scoring 30 points, that's a stat. But here's another thing: Georgia's 53-1 when it scores 30 or more, and their only loss was that Hail Mary from Tennessee in Kirby Smart's first year. So outside of that Hail Mary by Tennessee in Kirby Smart's first year, Georgia has not lost a game when they've scored 30 or more. But on the flip side, they're 1-9 when they've given up 30. And so the key difference between these first, 6 years, I'm not going to count last year because, I'll count last year because when we gave up 30 to Alabama, we lost, and when we didn't, we won. But here's the difference. 2021, Georgia averaged 38 points per game. 2020, they averaged 32. 2019, they averaged 30. 2018, they averaged 37. In 2017, they averaged 35. Now, and those were all outside of the top 10 in scoring offense. Well, now Georgia's number 6, and they're averaging 42. And that's with taking their foot off the pedal against Oregon, South Carolina, Auburn, and Vandy. And if Georgia wanted to, they could have scored one more touchdown in that Florida game, right? And so I'm not saying that's just all is good in the world. But it's a very different Georgia team than it has in the years past. Georgia has the offense to win a shootout now, and that's my honest opinion.
I mean, it's not crazy to say that, but still, when you look at Tennessee's offense compared to our offense, bro, Tennessee offense.
No, they're definitely a better offense. I'm not everyone debate that,
because I say this, they have a better play caller.
They do, and that's another thing I think is going to be a big thing. Heupel and Golish know what they're doing, and this is what I tried to argue with some fans on Twitter about. People love to get on Alabama's DBs and Alabama's defensive game plan, which wasn't a great game plan, and they didn't make adjustments. But the reason it wasn't a great game plan is because you have to give Tennessee their credit. They saw something in what Alabama did on defense that, wow, if we line up in this set and we do this, we'll get a matchup that we like. They know how to line up their players to exploit matchups. So I do think that, yes, Georgia's offense is good enough to maybe win a shootout. Against Tennessee, I don't think so, honestly. I just don't see that happening at all.
I think now if it comes down to the offenses, of course Tennessee's going to win. But if it's a shootout and the shootout comes down to who can get a stop in the fourth quarter, Georgia has all the advantage there.
I'll take Georgia on that. I'll give you that. But
And
I think overall
point.
what this game comes down to is, one, big plays, because those methodical plays are cool and they will take time off the clock and everything. But who can make a big play on offense and defense? I'm talking about turnovers. I'm talking about 20, 30-plus yard plays like that. Who can make enough of those plays?
On the flip side, if Tennessee can't get enough of those big plays, what do? Because that's been their whole thing all year, and it's because they're so good.
And that was my other thing.
If Tennessee has to drive the whole time,
that's why I said there's two things. The first thing is big plays. The second one is third down. If Tennessee is going to have to drive, they're going to have to win some third downs, which I don't think is impossible for them to do. I think they can win some third downs and win that competition and end up putting them ahead.
Oh, they can. And
I think one thing
No, go ahead, Gabe.
I think when you look at it, and I think what so much of this game is going to come down to is the game plan, because obviously if Georgia trots out if Tennessee comes out with the same game plan as they did versus Alabama, and Georgia comes out with a similar one as Alabama did, it's not close. But I think Georgia has 2 top 5 defensive coaches, and Tennessee may have the best offensive coach. I don't know if I want to say that yet, but Heupel is definitely top 3, because what he did with Oklahoma back in the day when they went undefeated, that offense was crazy. Their offense at UCF was good. He was the offensive coordinator while Scott Frost was there, and so I don't think he was calling plays, but he definitely factored into that.
Offensively, I put him up there with guys like Kiffin. Like he knows what
he's ahead
doing.
of Kiffin for me. He's ahead of Kiffin for me. I don't know if they're.
That's kind of.
I think he's a top. If we're just talking offensive coach, I think he's top 3 in the nation. I think if we're just talking defensive coaches, I think Kirby and Muschamp are both top 5 in the nation. So I think
I give Muschamp a lot more credit than most SEC fans. Those Florida teams always had defense. That's one thing they for sure had.
Those defenses at Texas, at what was it? He was also at Auburn, I think.
South Carolina.
I was talking as defensive coordinator, but even at South Carolina, those defenses were not bad when he was a head coach. He just couldn't get the offense
1 year over there.
I mean, that's his problem at Florida and at South Carolina was he couldn't get the offense. So, and it was never the defense. But so I think what I want to see is how is Georgia going to knock the timing off for Tennessee, because that's what Tennessee wants to do. That's why they run those bunch things, is because they want Hyatt to be in the back, right? So you can't get your hands on him, and you can't, because he's not a big guy, right? And he's a burner. So I want to see how Georgia is going to throw off his timing on the routes, and the other guy, I mean, Tillman, McCoy, all them as well. But more specifically, how do they throw off Hooker and Hyatt's timing? Because if Hyatt gets a free release, I mean, you're going to have to turn your hips really early, and it's going to be a 50-50 at best. So if Georgia can find a way to throw the timing off, because you can only make contact with the receiver within so much of the line, and if they're stacking Hyatt behind those other 2 receivers, that's going to be hard to do. So I think how Georgia game plans is going to be a big factor in limiting Tennessee.
Deep safety help in the middle. That's, to me, that's the biggest thing.
And I think if they're on Chris Smith's side, I'm not worried about it at all. Athletically, I'm not worried about Malachi Starks, but he's had some busted. I mean, that long play Florida had was a busted coverage from Malachi Starks. He stepped up to take the guy who was starting to come across the middle when his responsibility was to get the guy going deep. And so I think that is where y'all might say this is a crazy name to throw out, but I don't think it is at all. I think that's where not having Dan Jackson really hurts Georgia, because he's got the experience. He's not the best athletic guy, but he knows where to be. And I think Malachi Starks will get there, but he's only a freshman right now. So
we've seen Malachi Starks get beat.
Yeah. And so my thing is he going to be, because he can keep up with Hyatt. I genuinely think he can keep up with Hyatt. Now, I don't think he's as fast, but he can keep up with Hyatt. And he might be.
He lines up deep and he's in the middle. He can definitely be there to contest some catches.
So,
but to me, this is the thing. Hendon Hooker's smart enough. He's not going to force the ball down there. Like, he has one pick.
No, he's not.
He has one interception.
Hendon Hooker's like like 25.
Yeah, he has one interception. He's gonna if they're dedicating two guys to Hyatt, like I think they will, one over top and one underneath.
No. Honest to God's opinion, I think they will. No lie, because
you have to have someone over top. You have to have someone over top, or if you're not committing two to him, that safety better be on him the whole time.
Are you saying two pretty much in man? Or are you saying you think they're going to like cover the man?
Like they're gonna have a guy. They're gonna have a guy covering him, and then a safety over top. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, to stop that.
I think Georgia runs a lot of cover two with man underneath. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're gonna have two guys on him when that happens, and then someone else is gonna be open because of it. So.
But that's the thing. Though.
Put two guys in that zone.
No, it just okay. Tillman's back. Cool. Who's guarding Tillman? Kamari or Keely?
Keely. Their size. I mean, they're the same size. Georgia's not Georgia, I don't think Georgia's going to really shadow too much. No. But Keely needs to be when it's that side of the field. If they're, if Tennessee goes empty on one side and trips on another side, you need to have Keely on Tillman because
I can't wait to see Keely versus Hyatt. Keely versus
Hyatt. I don't think Keely will be on Hyatt. I don't think Keely will be on Hyatt very much at all because Hyatt's going to be in the slot. But
the other thing people forget, Tillman was supposed to be their number one receiver. He was supposed to be their guy,
and he shredded Georgia last year. And now I will say a lot of those yards did come in kind of garbage time when the game was out of hand, but he put up about 150, 180 yards on Georgia last year. But Ringo's going to have to press him. Right. And their size, I think Tillman's great, but I think Ringo can win that. But I think Javon Bullard is going to be a key when Georgia, because he is going to be the guy in the slot, right? Because Georgia's two star guys are Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith. Mm-hmm. Tyke Smith's coming off an ACL. He's not going to have the speed to keep up with Hyatt or to really even play him that close. So I think Javon Bullard is going to be key to Georgia's game plan with keeping Hyatt in check. I don't think you're going to see much of Keely on Hyatt at all because I think Tennessee knows that will not go good for him because if you put Hyatt on the outside, he lines up on the ball. I think Kirby's going to be yelling his mind off saying, Keely, come jam him. And I don't think Hyatt wins that. He might a couple times, but Keely is way bigger than that man.
Yeah, but okay. So you said Bullard is one of your players. Like who? Name me three players to watch for each team.
I'll do three on. I'll do. All right. It
doesn't matter.
I mean, I think for Tennessee, the players to watch. I think for one, it's going to be. I think one is going to be Brew McCoy. Because
that's what I was about to say.
Because Georgia's seen what Tillman can do to him, and Tillman is supposed to be their number one. Everyone has seen what Hyatt's doing this year. I mean, he's outscoring a lot of whole teams. I mean, going into last week, he had more touchdowns than Georgia Tech as a team overall. So everyone knows what those two are about, and obviously the coaches know what Brew McCoy is about, but he's going to have to be that guy. He's going to be the guy who the focus is not on. So he is going to have to be the one to make a lot of those plays that move the chains and stuff. Because Hyatt is mostly going to be a deep threat, and Georgia doesn't want to get burnt over top. And Tillman is their number one, so Georgia's obviously going to be focused on their number one. So when those two are covered, and it's 3rd and 3, you know who has to move the chains? Brew McCoy. And then I think I'm going to just say more a position. I mean, I've already touched on this. Tennessee's linebackers. I think they're going to be really important in both the run and the pass game because Georgia loves to go over the middle and they love to run it up the middle. So, those linebackers are going to get put in a lot of dangerous situations. And then I think one last one for Tennessee to watch. I mean, I'm not going to say Hendon Hooker because that's obvious. I mean, everyone knows he has to play good.
Yeah.
I want to say Tennessee's interior offensive line because you have Georgia's strong point of their defensive line, especially with Nolan Smith out, is that interior. You got Jalen Carter, you got Nazir Stackhouse, you got Zion Logue, right? You got some players right there, and Jalen Carter is tied with Will Anderson for the best defensive player in college football, talent-wise, in my opinion. They're both top 5 picks. And Jalen Carter can get after the quarterback from that defensive tackle spot. So if he's able to come up and break open the middle of that pocket, that's going to be dangerous for Hendon Hooker, right? It's going to throw off his timing with his receivers. It's going to make him be able to get out of the pocket, and which he's good at. He can keep his eye downfield and he can throw, but that's going to be a focus for him. For Georgia, I think you got to watch really the wide receiver group as a whole, right? Is A.D. Mitchell going to be back, right? The wide receivers are going to have to make some plays. Ladd cannot have any drops like he did. I think Malachi Starks is going to be another person to watch just because he's given up some busted coverages this year, and Tennessee will exploit that more than any team in the country, even Ohio State. And then I'm not going to say Stetson. I'm not going to say either QBs just because that is kind of obvious to me. I'm going to say third for Georgia. It's going to have to be Robert Beal and then whoever takes Robert Beal's spot. Because if you can't replicate some of what Nolan Smith gave you, it's not going to be good. So that's fine. Robert Beal's a 6-year senior, so I mean, if he's going to make himself some money, this is the week to do it.
Oh yeah, your final chance. Given my 3, I was gonna go Brew McCoy, but since you said him, I'm gonna actually take Tillman for the reason that you said. If I see Tillman on Ringo, I really don't think that's going to be a great day for Ringo, especially if that's getting lined up a lot. Like that's happening a lot. I don't see Ringo having a great time. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. So first, I'm gonna say Tillman, or really any receiver that's on Ringo Starks kind of side, like you said. Like I don't think that's gonna be a fun time for those guys. These receivers are good, all 3 of them. But I'm gonna keep it with Tillman for now because he's been kind of quiet this season. I think he's gonna blow up. My second one, Byron Young, the defensive lineman, the interior D lineman for Tennessee, 5 sacks this season. The interior of Georgia's O line is probably the weaker part of it. I don't know if you all agree. Like to me, that's not not where the streets are. Yeah, exactly. And we saw that against Missouri. They haven't played
better, but they're definitely Tate Ratledge until the Florida game got bullied a lot this year.
Mm-hmm. And we saw that against Missouri where the guys were coming straight up the middle on Stetson, and they weren't able to run the ball up the middle like they really wanted to. Byron Young is going to have a huge job, not only stopping the run, but also pass rushing. So that's my second one. And I guess if we're not saying Hooker, I don't know. I'm still going to have to go. I don't think there's anyone else that's going to make that big of an impact. Like that's just something you can't leave out. Him, 21 touchdowns, 1 pick. Obvious. Oh yeah, it's completely obvious, but I'm going to take that dunk. Like 21 touchdowns, 1 pick, 71 completion percentage. Like you got to figure out a way to slow that down. Like because that is ridiculous. I think
one thing that's dangerous. I think one thing that isn't great for Georgia is that Amarius Mims got that knee injury against Florida because Xavier Truss, who's Georgia's left guard, right? Tate Ratledge is the right guard. Truss is the left guard. And so Truss he hurt his toe in the Florida game, right? And Kirby's kind of brushed over in like injury reports this week, which Kirby, I don't follow Alabama as much, but I'm sure Saban is the same way. Kirby said A.D. Mitchell was day to day and he could have gone back in. He hasn't played since week 2. So
Saban
his injury report, and he probably learned it from Saban. It'd just be Kirby's injury reports are nothing unless he says the person is out for the season. It is nothing to listen to at all. But he didn't even touch on it, so I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. And so with him, I understand why Georgia hasn't, but I think Mims is one of their best 3 offensive linemen. So I've wanted him to take over the guard spot. But so I think if Truss is getting beat and Mims can't go, or Ratledge, so either the guards are getting beat and Mims can't go, I don't think that's great for Georgia.
I Feel that. And then on the other side for Georgia, I think the three guys are going to have to be number one, Darnell
Don't say
Washington.
Stetson 3 times.
I'm not. I'm going to say number one, Darnell Washington. He's going to have to be in charge of creating huge mismatches on that side. I already told y'all what I think about the receivers. They're not good enough. I wish I could say I think Ladd McConkey's going to be one of the players to watch, but I don't think he will. Like, I don't think he's going to go out there and having
It
is not hate. I'm just telling you right now. I don't think he's going to go out there putting up numbers like Georgia fans would like him to do. Like you guys said, you're worried about whether or not AD Mitchell can come back. That tells me what you think about Ladd McConkey. So
No,
I think
AD Mitchell. I think AD Mitchell is better than anyone on Bama's wide receiver course. So I just think he's a game changer. So I don't think that doesn't have anything to do with Ladd. But
give us an offensive coordinator that's not named Bill O'Brien, and then ask me again.
man, y'all have Bill O'Brien for the next 3 years, bro.
But
keep him.
I'll say, yeah, like I said, Darnell Washington, he's going to be in charge of creating those matches. I like Brock Bowers, and he can create mismatches with his speed, but it's not enough to me that I don't think, like I said, Tennessee can control him, like can keep him in check. Darnell Washington's going to be a mismatch because of his size. There's no one that's going to be as big. There's going to be big enough and as fast as he runs that's going to be able to slow him down. They're going to have to do something kind of creative with that. My second guy to watch on Georgia, we just talked about him, Keely Ringo. If I see him on Cedric Tillman, it's not going to be a good day. If I see him on Jalen Hyatt, it's going to be an absolutely terrible day. I promise that. And if I see him on Brew McCoy, we'll see what that looks like. I think that could go both ways, low-key. But, yeah, Keely Ringo is my second guy. And then my number one is I don't have – this is the overall position group. Georgia's O-line. Like I said, it's going to be their job to go out there and set the tone for that game. If Georgia's able to get that run going, Tennessee's not going to really have anywhere to go. I think Tennessee can score fast, but if they can't keep Georgia off the field so that Georgia can run out the clock on them, it's Tennessee's going to lose that game. So I think O-line for Georgia's going to have to do that, and they're also going to have to protect Stetson. I said this already. You pressure Stetson, you get hands in his face, you rush him, you make him nervous, he will throw up something stupid out of just desperation. We've seen it before. So that O-line as a whole is going to have to be a group to watch for Georgia.
I think, and also kind of what you just touched on is what makes Darnell doubly important because of his size. I mean, there are schools who recruited him to play left tackle. There are schools who didn't even want him as a tight end. They wanted him as a left tackle when he was coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. So he is another tackle. If he's lined up, hand in the ground like that, he is another tackle, and there's no other way around it. So when it is a run or if he drops it, if it's a pass and he chip blocks, if Tennessee's rushing 5 and he comes off and he chips someone with his size and he throws them off and it makes it so Tennessee's only pretty much rushing 4, I think that really is the thing that's going to be key to watch. Because I know he can do it. The question is how much does he do it?
But remember, I said that was the key that I said. That was part of the key that I said to beat Georgia. You pass rush them, and it forces those tight ends to stay inside. We saw that against Missouri. And then they had receivers running out there that aren't good enough for what Stetson's doing. When you don't have your tight ends in pass coverage, Georgia's honestly at their weakest when they're passing, when their tight ends are not out there catching passes.
But I think that's one thing that – and so I kind of think that's what makes Kenny McIntosh so important because if Darnell does have to block, Brock is a wide receiver. Brock is a wide receiver for Georgia. There's no other way around it. He doesn't put his hand in the ground unless it's a run play on the goal line. He's a wide receiver. So if Darnell has to block, when Kenny McIntosh gets in that flat, if he runs a wheel, if he runs an angle, if he runs a flat route, how much is he going to be able to get the ball? Is Stetson going to get the ball to him for one? How much does he get the ball and make people miss? Because he's capable of it, and he's our main pass catching back. So I think that's something to watch too.
Okay, for Tennessee, my number one, I'll say I'll say a position group. I'll say Tennessee's secondary. Because Georgia's gonna run the ball, and Georgia runs the ball. Georgia runs the ball inside, but they also love running out to the outside of numbers. So if Tennessee corners are not physical enough to get tackles and help start the run, it'll be a long day for their corners as well. For my number 2 player for Tennessee, Snell, the running back, because if Tennessee has a respectable run game to go with that prolific pass game, it's going to be hard for Georgia to make adjustments on the fly as the game goes on. And then for number 3, I'll say Brew McCoy, because Brew McCoy is physical, he's fast and everything. It won't be as much attention on him. I'll just say if he has someone as Kamari Lassiter on him, he has to win those battles one-on-one, because Tillman and Ringo are going to get attention, and Hyatt and Bullard's going to get attention as well. It's all Brew McCoy is the chains mover. So whenever they need to change, they go to Brew McCoy. If Brew McCoy cannot do this for this game, then we'll see a different wrinkle from Tennessee's offense as the game goes on. That's Tennessee side for Georgia. Number 1, I have to go with Malachi Starks. I'm not gonna lie. I have to go with Malachi Starks because if Malachi sometimes gets caught looking at the quarterback instead of watching the play develop in front of his eyes. If he does that against Hendon Hooker will pick him apart this game.
You're gonna look him right off.
Like simple, a 1-2 look to the right, go to the left. Like, that's all he has to do. For number 2, I'll say the running back group. If the running back group comes out mean and angry, and they just keep moving their feet, just keep being physical, I think it'll be a test to Tennessee's defense, see how they respond. And for number 3, I'll have to go with Darnell as well, because against Florida, I remember one play, it was Darnell single coverage on the short side of the field in the goal line. It was like we're at the 5. We ran that screen past the lag. I wanted them to just throw the jump ball to Darnell. I'm tired of running these screen passes. Just throw the jump ball. Whenever we're in the red zone, like inside the 5, just throw it up to Darnell or throw it up to Brock. If not, just hand the ball off. Like I don't want to see screens inside the 5.
I think you might even see that because Georgia didn't use it all year until that SEC championship. So you could see it this week. I mean, I know the play is available. They had it last year. They definitely have it this year. I just think it's when do they want to open the playbook? And if you ask me, I mean, this is a playoff game, right? I don't think the loser. Now there's still the loser. This is not eliminated, but I think you're definitely going to need some things to go wrong. You're going to need the winner to beat Alabama or LSU technically in that SEC championship, and you're going to need some people to lose. But so I mean, this is a playoff game, so if that play is going to get used, I think now is the time.
Yeah, but it's going to be. Georgia has to be the more physical team.
I want to hear y'all's picks and score predictions.
Oh gosh.
I didn't say score. Oh, I didn't give a score prediction, but I gave my pick.
No. But first,
we'll all give a score prediction once we're done with this. So.
Who is going to be the game day picker?
Oh,
I don't know, man.
Golly, there's so many.
I have one in mind, but I won't say nothing to y'all.
I have one in mind, but I just don't know if they would do it. Nick Chubb, he just played on Thursday. Plenty of time for him to get here.
I was just about to say what Georgia players are on a bye this week in the NFL.
And here's one of the reasons. The reason that Tennessee is my second most hated team. I hate Tennessee. I hate Tennessee so much. I wish y'all could have seen me watching the Bama game. I don't think I've ever cheered harder for Alabama in my life. And
the group chat game was so bad.
I hate Tennessee. I legitimately would have worn a full Alabama outfit. That's how much I hate Tennessee.
No.
But I know y'all seen the video of the dude who's Oh, I hate Tennessee. They don't got that good orange. They got that puke orange. I know you know what video I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, talking about the
I-
Alabama one? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that dude wholeheartedly. And they cheered when Nick Chubb hyperextended his knee, right? That was at Neyland Stadium. When the replay was shown, Tennessee
Remember
fans
that was
clapped and
gross.
cheered because he was out of the game, right? I've never now if there's a like when Kyle Pitts went out of the Florida game, sure I was a little happy, but it was clear he was okay. He got up, whatever. And I still don't want to ever see a hit like that. But I'll never cheer for an opposing player doing something like what Nick Chubb's injury was. I'll never cheer for a broken bone, a torn ACL. I don't want that to happen. I don't want it. I don't want the excuses. I don't. Right? Like,
Yep, you want to beat a team outright. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into this with the Bama fan, but I still don't think if Alabama had Williams and Mechie, I don't think they would have won national championship. But that's something that you can say, and it definitely has merit. So the fact that they can even say that makes me mad, and so I want to beat a team at full strength every time. And the fact that they cheered when he went down like that is just it really makes me mad.
Yeah.
And I think if Kendall Milton wants to go to the NFL this year, this is his game. If he gets any carries, look, because his freshman year when we played Tennessee, this was the game where he first showed any flashes. And let's be honest, I hate to dog on the guy, but it's been all downhill from there. He had a run where he carried like 2 defenders for like 10 yards, and since then it's just been downhill.
Yeah.
But no, I think Nick Chubb's an option. This one I'm not sure about. Okay. Champ Bailey and Richard Seymour are doing autograph signings at the UGA bookstore from 10 to 12. So, yes, that runs into the game day time, but they'll both be there in Athens. I could see them leaving 30 minutes early. So, I really have no idea, but
I
got
my
mine
3
now
guesses:
too.
Nick Chubb, Champ Bailey, and Richard Seymour. If they pull out some random country artist like they did Kane Brown versus the Clemson game last year, I will be mad. I will be heated. Like I will have a problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Me?
Go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
I was just looking at bye weeks in the NFL. Eagles on a bye week. Jordan Davis. It's too easy.
He did well. Only thing that is a good pick, but he did just hurt his ankle. I mean, he was in a walking boot, so I don't know if he's gonna want to take the time off.
He did
from
say
rehab.
4 to 6 weeks or whatever. I don't know. I think
so. I don't know. That's actually a great pick, but I just don't know if he'll leave the rehab. But
it depends on how
healthy
he feels.
That's a great pick, though.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. You chose Jordan Davis?
Yeah.
Or you could do, I'll spin off that. It could be Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, Nakobe Dean is in the Eagles, too.
Yeah, but now that you say Jordan Davis, I hope it's Jordan Davis because
he has that personality to do that. I know they're going to call
if you were at the Georgia championship parade thing when they went inside the stadium, he got up and spoke, and he got the crowd more fired up than anyone. I mean, the only moment it was louder in that stadium when they were doing their national championship parade was when they showed the trophy, because he had on the Georgia jersey, he lifted it up, he had on a Braves jersey underneath. He has.
That was so tough.
Okay, now that you say it, I'm going to be really upset if it's not Jordan Davis, because I think he would be the perfect game day picker for any school, and he just played for Georgia.
Okay. For me, I'm going to say Todd Gurley.
Oh, I would love that too.
That's a good one.
He deserves that.
I want it to be a former player. I loved when they had Peyton Manning and Christian Wilkins on. Those were 2 of my favorite ones.
Yep, Christian Wilkins.
They were
former
players.
He's smart. Christian Wilkins is a smart person. Like, he was making some picks, and I was like, he's been watching.
Actually,
like, he's been studying.
I watch it every week. He's on top of the leaderboard for the record.
Yep, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, you could tell he was watching whenever I was watching his pitch. I was like, okay, like he knows what he's talking about. Like,
yeah, like, and go ahead, Gabe.
I love it when they come on with actual knowledge, right? I don't hate it. I mean, if I can understand why the guest picker's like, oh well, my wife's best friend went to UCLA, so I'm going to take UCLA.
Yeah, you can tell when they don't actually watch college football.
I can get that, right? Whatever happens, like I would, you know, I understand it. But the way Christian Wilkins was doing it, where he was like, oh, well, this, and this. Oh, well, that offense isn't very hype out. I think that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. He was giving actual insight.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no lie. Okay. They'll do Todd. I want to see Todd. But they're probably gonna bring in like Ryan Seacrest or something, bro.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh, or I could see Bubba Watson.
I could see Bubba Watson. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't love it though. I really don't like. Last year when they had Jeff Foxworthy on, I didn't care for it. I mean, give me someone who like. I don't know.
It's hard because now I think about it, it's gonna be like.
Now that he said it, if it's not Jordan Davis, I'm gonna be a little upset.
He's just too perfect.
I don't like.
He got that attitude, and then like, not only is he on a bye week, you don't have to be near the team for the next 6 weeks. Like,
oh, but another one I could see, Hans Ward.
He's coaching somewhere though.
Hans Ward's coaching. I don't know. Is he? Where is he?
He was last year. He's he's the head coach of the San Antonio XFL franchise.
Wow,
I think he was at FAU last year, if I remember correctly. Let me look real quick.
That's great.
I'm looking right now for you.
2021, he was special assistant to the head coach, and he was wide receiver coach last year for FAU.
Yeah, but that doesn't start till 2023. The head coach and general manager, that doesn't start till 2023.
Yeah, no. Yeah, okay,
So,
it is not. Yeah.
We could see Hans.
It's a lot of great options to get former Georgia players on there who will pump up the crowd and will just be a great guest picker. So if they go a route other than that, they're going to have to knock it out of the park or I'm going to be disappointed.
Nah, I'm not going to lie. Like, now I think about it, it's either between Jordan, N'Kobe. If Ravens have the bye week,
It could be Gurley. I could see it Gurley.
Gurley for sure, because he has the time in the world. Jarvis Jones, maybe.
He's got to be. I know he's been coaching.
Yeah, but then we could always put in account. Is Sony Michel still on the team?
Chargers.
Sony Michel's on the Chargers.
Chargers don't have a bye week. Chargers play Sunday. So no. Dang, that's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So score predictions. Justin, go first.
Score prediction. I think it's going to be one possession game by 5. I'm going to give it to Tennessee 45-40. I think it's going to be very high scoring.
Okay.
I'm up. My turn.
Yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
Okay. I'm just going to say it quick. I ain't going to drop no explanation. 41-28, Georgia.
That's not crazy. That's not crazy.
That is crazy. You only say that's not crazy when you know something crazy, bro. Like, that don't make sense.
Bro, that's not crazy.
2 touchdowns, bro. Georgia's
No, listen. Tennessee hardest road
22
game.
points to Kent State, 20 to Florida, and 23 to Missouri. And you think you're only going to let up 28 to Tennessee? That's crazy.
Well, we only gave up 3 to Oregon. We get you can do that game. It's not
Oregon. That was their first game of the season. It was Bo Nix was playing Bo Nix football still. Like that, you can if you played Oregon right now, they would still put up at least 20 on y'all. Like at least 25. Like there's no way you can let up 22 to Kent State and say these things.
Listen to me. Florida neutral site, Missouri away. Kent State
was that
games around. Listen, no one cared about Kent State in the crowd. No one cared. Okay, cool. Tennessee's hardest road game was what? Pitt, right?
This will be their hardest road game. This will be y'all's hardest home game. Like, that's cool. I don't care. Okay. There's no way that y'all are only giving up.
The magnitude of what Sanford's going to be doing for this game?
God, bro, you love to talk about the crowd.
No crowd.
Shut up.
Look,
28
here's my
is
thought
insane.
process. Here's my thought
Tennessee is
process.
not only letting up to like what?
That's
like,
not crazy.
that is crazy.
'Cause
When you look
here's
at what
just part of
Georgia
the
has
game.
led up so far this season in terms of the games that they've had problems with, where they've been letting up between 20 and 23 points. There's no way that Tennessee only lets up only five more when they are almost. There's no way they're not the top offense in college football right now. I haven't looked at the ranking, but if they're not top 3,
No, they are.
They are.
Exactly.
So
they're
for
the number one
you to think that Kent State is going to have only 5 points less than Tennessee.
I'm saying my prediction, thinking Georgia comes out firing like they did versus Oregon, and they don't.
That means Hendon Hooker throws a pick.
And I think he will.
I'm gonna take off this headset. He's thrown one pick all year.
If you don't take, and it was to the other team that had a good defense that he played. It was to Alabama, right? I don't think it's crazy to say Tennessee wins. I don't think it's crazy to say Tennessee wins if Hendon Hooker throws a pick, and I definitely don't think it's crazy to say he throws a pick at all. But here's my thing: if you take Ladd McConkey out of that Kent State game, he had the yips that game. If you take Ladd McConkey out of that Kent State game, it's 52-10. And their only touchdown came off of a missed tackle, right? And I'm not saying that can't happen to Tennessee. But here's the way I look at it. I would say Tennessee's offense, in my opinion, has gotten like 7 points better than I'm not even going to talk about last year because I was going to talk about last year.
This whole new team, I ain't gonna lie.
If you look at Tennessee's schedule this year, right? They put up 59 on Ball State. Ball State's nobody. That's running the score up. They put up 34 on Pittsburgh. They put up 63 on Akron. They put up 38 on Florida. They put up 40 on LSU. And then they put up 52 on Alabama, but they gave up 49. So, and they put up 65 on UT Martin. And they put up 44 on Kentucky. If you go and look at that Kentucky game, I'm going to say it exact so I don't get it wrong. But if you go look at the play-by-play from that game, we'll look at the game summary right now. If you look at the play-by-play, Tennessee was scoring. Tennessee scored their last drive was a kneel, or a 1-yard run to end the game. Tennessee scored a touchdown on the time before that. Tennessee was up 37-6, and they were throwing passes to score touchdowns. Tennessee was up 30-6 at the end of the third quarter, and they were throwing passes to score a touchdown. I'm not saying they're not a great offense. But they've stat padded a little bit, right? So I don't think it's crazy to say that their scoring offense, just scoring-wise, is more similar to Georgia's this year than it is to LSU a couple of years ago.
So Georgia didn't stat pad against Auburn or Oregon or South Carolina?
No,
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you go look at the differences, Tennessee's throwing a pass up 30-6. Just they're airing it out. Georgia is running that. Georgia in the Florida game took off the last, I want to say, 8 minutes of the clock. That's the difference of the game. Tennessee, 8 minutes left in the fourth. Tennessee was throwing the ball. They weren't trying to run the clock out. They were throwing the ball, which is fine. That's how they play. But it's not crazy to say that offense is more of a 42 point per game offense. I don't think that's crazy to say at all. And then the way I look at it, Georgia's defense is giving up 10 a game. You take about the average of that, you're around the mid to high 20s. So that's just the way I look at it.
You're a super numbers guy, and those numbers are going to get you all messed up.
Justin, watch out. For me, Georgia wins 48-38. That you cannot say that's crazy, bro.
It is crazy.
I think
Georgia's not putting up 48.
I think if Georgia has to score 48, it's because they're playing catch up.
Yeah, Georgia's not.
No, here's my reasoning. if Georgia defense gets a stop and scores, I think Georgia can.
Y'all are predicting
consecutively-
something that has happened once this season. Hendon Hooker throwing a
Oh
pick.
my-
Like, y'all
against
realize
real
that.
competition.
That's against the only decent secondary they've played, in my opinion.
Dude.
I don't
And
think
honestly,
LSU secondary is.
Go watch that.
Let's not
Go watch
let's
that
not
pick play.
let's not forget Tennessee's offense went stagnant against Alabama in the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Go watch that pick play.
And
It wasn't like DeMarco
I don't
Helms
think it's
played
crazy
great
to
on
say.
that play. He kind of
No, I don't
looked.
thi-
He
no,
looked
but
into that
that's-
interception. Like it wasn't like Hendon
But
Hooker.
here's
just
where I'm agreeing
threw
with you.
a
I don't
pick.
think it's
Like,
crazy. I don't think it's crazy to say he throws a pick and Tennessee wins the game. I don't think it's crazy at all to say that. I don't think him throwing a pick is a crazy thing at all to say. He threw a pick versus Alabama and they won. I don't think that's what you need to be focused on, is my thing. I think Tennessee can throw a pick and still put up 45 on Georgia and win the game. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think it'll happen. But if you simulate it 100 times, that's a possibility that can happen.
Like,
But I don't think it's crazy to say he throws a pick and they only put up 24. He throws 2 picks. And here's my thing. I think
no.
that Georgia's safeties are going to have. I think, if you ask me, I think one of Georgia's safeties will have an interception.
Okay, that's not crazy. That's not crazy, Justin. Don't come and say.
I don't think it's gonna
That's not
happen. DeMarco Helms was the guy who made the interception for us. He was also the same guy who got burnt 4 or 5 times. It wasn't like he was
That's
in
what
great
I'm saying. It's
position.
not-
He just got lucky. So I don't think that Hendon Hooker throwing a pick was like, oh, like he just threw a bad pass. Like I don't. So for y'all to just think that, oh, he threw one against Bama, he can do it against Georgia. Like it wasn't like he was like
that's
made
what
a
I'm
bad
saying.
play.
He can throw
Like,
a bad pass
the
versus
guy was
Georgia,
there.
and Georgia has the. He's not going to throw many bad passes, right? I think we've
He doesn't.
established that.
He doesn't.
But
This man
Georgia
misses like
and
5
Bama-
passes
here's
a
the thing.
game. It's crazy.
Here's
Like,
the thing. Here's the thing where Georgia and Bama are similar on defense. They both have the playmakers to when he throws a bad pass. If you throw 5 bad passes a game versus Pitt, versus Florida, versus LSU, chances are they aren't going to capitalize. You throw 5 bad passes versus Alabama and Georgia, I'd say 50-50 that one of them's an interception. So I don't think it's crazy to say he throws an interception and they get shut down. I don't think it's crazy to say he throws an interception and they still roll. I don't think him throwing an interception, obviously it affects the outcome of the game, but I don't think it's as simple as if Hendon Hooker doesn't throw an interception, Tennessee wins. If he throws one, Georgia wins. I don't think it's that simple.
I'm just saying that if Tennessee's only scoring 28 points, that means you're predicting some turnovers because I don't think that they're getting stopped that much defensively by Georgia, in my opinion.
I think he throws one. I think there's an avenue to, depending how the game's going, and he's really just kind of desperation in the fourth, he might throw another. But I think within like a realistic game plan, game scenario, I think he probably ends up with 1 interception. And I think the difference is Tennessee having to. Georgia's going to bend, don't break. I bet Kirby at practice all day was talking about some bend, don't break.
I almost said Tennessee's
Because
kicker
that's
was
how-
a key player. I was gonna say that, but I decided to chill.
Yeah, but that's why Alabama got beat. They didn't bend at all. They just broke.
Yeah.
They either broke or they shut him down. I mean, that's really pretty much what the game came down to. I mean, you give a guy 5 touchdowns like that, you're not going to win the game. But so my thing is, at home, Georgia's not going to have 18 penalties. And at home, Alabama wouldn't have had it. Alabama, I don't know what's happening this year for Alabama to have so many penalties. But at home, Alabama wouldn't have had 18 penalties. Georgia's the least penalized team in the conference by far. Tennessee, and here's another thing. We talked about Alabama. I was on the podcast the week before Alabama-Tennessee game, and I brought up Alabama was, at the time, the second most penalized team in the SEC behind Tennessee in penalties per game. Georgia's the least. Georgia's been the least all season. Georgia averages about 4. It might have gone up or down since that game. I think down. Alabama, after the Tennessee game, was averaging 9. Before, they were averaging about 7.5. Tennessee was averaging about 7.2, I think it was, if I remember correctly. So if Neyland affected Alabama to have 18 penalties, right? It's scientifically proven. Once you get over like, I think it's like 105 decibels, it doesn't really change anything. So yes, Neyland's louder than Georgia. Georgia has an open stadium and less fans or less seating. So it's louder, but Georgia's going to be at 100 plus decibels the entire game. So I think it's not crazy to come in and say Tennessee shoots himself in their own foot and has over 10 penalties. And I think what happens is it's not Hendon Hooker that's making mistakes. I think it's Georgia's not going to let Hyatt burn them over top. And so when they get it to, let's say Tennessee gets it to, I don't know, 3rd and 2, and then they have a 5-yard false start. Now it's 3rd and 7. Well, Georgia's not going to let Hyatt come over top, and I personally think Tillman will not just be bullying Ringo. He'll get him some, that's for sure. But on those plays where Hyatt's shut down because they're double teaming him, like we've kind of established, and Ringo is sticking with Tillman, and they go to Brew McCoy, and he catches it 3 yards from the line of scrimmage, and then he has to go another 4. I think that's where it's going to be. Tennessee's going to be put in a lot of short yard situations, and I think Georgia's offense is going to run the ball and be efficient enough that Tennessee's not going to take very many chances. And every game that Georgia's been close this year, it's been by an inferior opponent pulling out every trick in the book. Tennessee ran a fake punt. South Carolina ran a fake punt. And Kent State ran a fake. I think Tennessee Tennessee believes they are on par with Georgia, and I don't blame them. I mean, there's a reason they're ranked number 1. So Tennessee's not going to try anything that you would normally call stupid. They're not going to go for it on their own 30 with 4th and 3 very often, if at all. Whereas these other teams, they've tried things like that. So I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think Hendon Hooker has a bad game. Hendon Hooker, I think, is the Heisman favorite, and he'll probably / should win it. But I think the difference is Tennessee's playmakers are not going to be able to. There's one thing, you can say whatever you want about Georgia, but there's one thing they do good. When a person gets the ball, they bring them down. They don't let people run for. Sure, Georgia might get a little bit burnt and give up a 20-yard catch, but he runs for 5 yards and is tackled. I mean, you saw, I don't know which exact game it was. It could have been Missouri. It was like a crucial, 3rd and 7, and they ran like a little 5-yard dig. And the quarterback made the throw. The guy got it. Keely Ringo was on him. He was on his back pocket like this. Well, Keely Ringo took an outside angle and gave the guy space to make the catch and tackled him. He didn't go for the pass breakup. He said, okay, it's 3rd and 7. He's going to have to catch it and get 3 more yards. That's what Georgia's good at. They're good at getting guys down before the line of scrimmage. So I think that's where it is. I don't think it's Hendon Hooker throws picks. I don't think it's any of that. I just don't think they're going to be able to move the sticks enough to keep it up.
I mean, I can agree with you on that. No, I can agree with you on that, Gabe. He came with some valid points, Justin. I cannot lie. But you also did have valid points of understanding that Tennessee's offense is very potent, and Georgia's defense is not there yet, as special as it was from years previous. So I get where both sides are coming from.
If Georgia gives up the big plays, with any consistency, they lose. I just don't think they will.
Okay.
I don't think the game plan will let that happen.
Okay, so what's the over/under on NFL scouts?
Over/under on NFL scouts?
Yeah.
2 from each team, so what?
Yeah.
64.
Something crazy.
Yeah.
No, I think it'll. I mean, I don't know really what other games this year, but I think every team will have a representative at Georgia, Tennessee, and every team will have a representative at LSU, Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay. Over/under arrest in Athens.
Arrest?
What's the line set at?
Okay, I'll give you 10.
Over. 10? Over. There's 10 on a Tuesday.
Gabe said it's 10 on a Tuesday.
Win or lose. Over.
Okay,
If they lose, over.
If they lose,
I promise it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be so bad.
No.
It'll be so bad.
I got a question though.
Okay.
If Georgia's number 3 team and they beat the number 1 team, is the field rushed?
No, because they're
Yes.
Georgia and it's Kirby Smart. No.
I promise you, the field's gonna be rushed. I don't know how, because I say this. I remember I went to the game, the LSU Georgia game, when it had Zach Mendenberger, and we won because of Justin Scott Wesley catch, and we had Aaron Murray. That was the only game I thought that we would rush the field, and we didn't. And I think because Georgia security prepared for the amount of people this game, and they had like everything blocked off. Like, I ain't gonna lie, they had like four security guards at each corner of the stadium. Like, literally, they had security guards at each section of the stadium. Where if you try to get up and like try to run towards the field, it shut that down so quick. So that's the only reason I said. But now, yeah, I think Georgia let's the students rush the field. They'll pay the fine. They don't care.
Georgia just came off a national championship. Your head coach is Kirby Smart. I don't know how many times I've seen Bama's field get rushed. Oh, wait, 0. They don't rush Bama's field. Like, that's just not something you do. I couldn't tell you a single time Bama's rushed the field after beating someone. When you're Bama, the expectation is that you win every game. You're never going to rush the field because of you beat a team that's better than you. I don't care that they're better than us. Like, and I think Kirby and Georgia are the same way. They have that tradition of that culture of nah, we were meant to win this game. We're not going to rush the field for nobody. Because that, to me, shows...
Now I think about it, you said that. Nah, Georgia's not going to rush the field.
Yeah, I don't see Georgia rushing the field. Nah. Them fans know.
Well,
the biggest reason I don't think they will is because of the hedges. It's hard to rush the field.
Bro, the hedges are everywhere, bro. It's hard.
You can't, if you're on the sides, you can't come. So
no, you can't. Like, I ain't gonna lie. They shut that down. Well, that's the end of the Georgia Tennessee segment. We will see you guys on the NFL segment. Peace.